Mansa Musa. From 1312 to 1337, Mansa Musa ruled the Mali Empire in West Africa, controlling gold and copper-rich territories and controlling trade between the continent's north and interior. Mali became tremendously prosperous. Mansa Musa is reported to have spent so much gold in Cairo that gold prices plummeted by 20%. Please, before we continue with today's video, don't forget to click the like button and subscribe to the channel. Mansa, a Muslim like his royal ancestors, returned from Mecca with architects and academics who built mosques and universities that made places like Timbuktu worldwide famous. Mansa's visit to Cairo would help to extend Mali's popularity even further, all the way to Europe, where exaggerated tales of the king's vast gold fortune piqued the imagination of traders and explorers. Sundiata Keita built the Mali Empire, 1240 to 1645, the greatest and wealthiest empire ever seen in West Africa. The capital of Mali was Niani, while Timbuktu, along the Niger River and at the crossroads of major waterways and land routes, was the most significant trading hub. Serving as a commerce center, between the interior and southern coasts of West Africa and North Africa via the Sahara deserts, caravan routes yielded enormous wealth for the city. Salt was a primary commodity traded from the north, while gold and ivory were traded from the south. Ghana, Wallata, Dadmeka, and the Kingdom of Songhai were all part of the empire, which eventually reached all the way to the Atlantic coast. Because of their contact with Arab traders, as well as Arab invaders, indigenous monarchs adopted Islam, and the Mali Empire would play an important role in the spread of Islam across West Africa. Locals or at least urban residents were converted, although some of those conversions were done by force, resulting in communities that drew Muslim clerics from the north, bolstering the religion's hold on the region. Local elites, including their greatest ever monarch, Mansa Musa, would make pilgrimages to Islamic holy sites such as Mecca. Mansa Kanku Musa took power in 1312 and inherited an already prosperous Mali kingdom. He would reign until 1337. Mansa was the traditional Mali title meaning king, and Musa was the grandnephew of the founder Sundiata Keita. Mansa Musa gained the throne after his predecessor, Mansa Abu Bakr II, sailed out into the Atlantic with a large fleet of ships and was never seen again. With an army numbering around 100,000 men, including an armored cavalry corps of 10,000 horses, and with the talented general Suran Mandian, Mansa Musa was able to extend and maintain Mali's vast empire, doubling its territory and making it second in size only to that of the Mongol Empire at the time. Mansa Musa split his kingdom into provinces, each administered by a governor, Farba, selected personally by him to better govern this huge stretch of country comprising a diversity of tribes and ethnic groups. The administration was improved even more by keeping more records and sending them to the consolidated government offices in Niani. Taxes on trade, the Mali-controlled copper and gold mines, and the imposition of tribute from conquered tribes all contributed to the state's prosperity. As a result, Mansa Musa became enormously wealthy, possibly the wealthiest individual in history. Mansa Musa, like many other religious Mali rulers before and after him, embarked on a pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324. But when he stopped at Cairo in July of that year, he created quite a stir. The camel caravan of the Mali ruler had traversed the Sahara, and when he arrived in Egypt, even the Sultan was surprised by the wealth brought with him by this West African king. According to some accounts, each of the 100 camels carried 135 kilograms of gold dust, while each of the 500 slaves wielded a 2.7 kilogram gold staff. There were also hundreds of other camels carrying food and textiles, horse riders waving the king's massive crimson and gold banners, and a large human entourage of servants and officials numbering in the tens of thousands. Mansa Musa would give away so much gold and his entourage would spend so much money in the city's markets that the value of the gold dinar in Cairo would plummet by 20%. In proportion to the silver dirham, the flooded gold market would take 12 years to recover. Egypt's merchants, in particular, were pleased to see so many gullible visitors suddenly bustling around their markets, and they took full advantage, upping their prices and robbing the tourists of their gold at every opportunity. Indeed, Mansa Musa and his people overspent to the point of bankrupting the city, a condition that aided later Egyptian investment within the Mali Empire, allowing merchants to recuperate part of the value of commodities they had supplied on credit. The king of Mali had made a first meeting gesture by gifting the Sultan of Egypt 50,000 gold dinars. In exchange, the Sultan was ignoble, ordering Mansa Musa to kiss the ground in tribute. In every other way, though, this ruler from Africa's mysterious interior was treated like royalty, with a palace and adoration wherever he went throughout his 3-month visit. The monarch of Mali is described as follows by the Arab historian Al-Makrizi, 1364–1442. He was a young man with a brown skin, a pleasant face and good figure. His gifts amazed the eye with their beauty and splendor. The fact that news of Mansa Musa's Cairo tour eventually reached Europe is a testament to his impact. A mapmaker in Spain was motivated to construct the first detailed map of West Africa in Europe. Mansa Musa is seen on the map, which is part of the Catalan Atlas, sitting regally on a throne, wearing an enormous gold crown, and clutching a golden staff in one hand and a gigantic nugget or ball of gold in the other. Later European explorers would be inspired by such gold stories to travel to Africa in search of the fabled riches of Timbuktu, the golden city of the desert that, even in the 18th century, no one knew where to put on a map. According to some historians, this is how Europe's cruel colonization of Africa began. After Cairo, Mansa Musa traveled to Arabia, where he bought land and houses to provide lodging for pilgrims from Mali who followed in his footsteps. The monarch was impressed by the sacred sights he saw and returned to Mali to construct a spectacular audience chamber at Niani as well as mosques in Gao and Timbuktu. The big mosque in the later city, also known as Djinguer was one of them. The buildings were designed by Ishaq al-Tujan, a well-known architect from Andalusian Granada who had been lured from Cairo after Mansa Musa's visit. Al-Tujan spent the rest of his life in Mali after the mosque was completed in 1330. In both the capital city and Timbuktu, a royal palace or madugu was built, as well as fortress walls, to protect the latter city from raids by the Tuareg, the southern Saharan nomads. Musa was also inspired by the universities he visited throughout his pilgrimage, bringing literature and intellectuals back to Mali. He promoted Islamic education, particularly in Timbuktu, which, with its mosques, universities, and numerous Quranic schools, became not only the holiest city in Western Africa at the time, but also an internationally renowned center of culture and religious study. Mansa Musa also sent native Muslim scholars to Morocco, to learn as much as they could before returning to Mali as teachers. With these educational ties came diplomatic ties with Arab powers, as well as an influx of investment into Mali from Egyptian entrepreneurs and others, looking for a piece of the lucrative West African trade. Mansa Musa was succeeded by his son Mansa Maganai, who also served as king while his father was on his legendary pilgrimage. The Magan's rule was barely 4 years long, and his uncle, Mansa Suleiman, took over as the monarch. Mansa Suleiman carried on his brother's propagation of Islam, and the Mali Empire flourished for another century or two before Europeans, particularly the Portuguese, ventured into Africa. By the mid-15th century, Mali had lost its monopoly on trade in the region due to the discovery of fresh goldfields and access to West Africa's southern coast. As the empire was ravaged by civil warfare, the Mali Manzas were also guilty of fighting amongst themselves. As a result, the Tuareg attacked Mali cities like Timbuktu first, and later, in the 1460s, the expanding Songhai kingdom, controlled by King Suni Ali, definitively took over most of Mali's lands.